What's up, everyone? Chris Manning here from the Locked On Cavs podcast. Evan's off today, but we have a great guest today, Rafael Barlowe from the NBA Big Board newsletter on Substack, which you should subscribe to today, and the NBA Big Board show from Locked On. Let's get into it. All right, thanks for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. I'm Chris Manning, covering the Cavs in the NBA for places like Dime on UPROXX and SB Nation Fear the Sword. Rafael Barlowe, one of the hosts of the NBA Big Board show and the proprietor, I'm going to use the word proprietor in this case, of the NBA Big Board newsletter on Substack, is our guest today. Rafael, thanks so much for coming through. You're doing a bit of a media tour in the lead up to the draft, so I'm glad you could squeeze us in here.
Of course, man. Yeah, definitely. Especially for, you've been a supporter of the transition when I took over for Chat Ford. You're one of the first people to subscribe and reach out to me. So I really, really appreciate it. So anytime you want me on, man, just shoot me a message and I'll make it happen.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It feels like about like 7 years ago because of how the world has been since we met in real life at Summer League, and yet that was less than a year ago. Yeah. But it feels about like 7 years ago at this point. Rafael, let me ask you just broadly. I've spent a lot of time looking at this draft from someone who's playing catch up, using your newsletter, using your podcast to catch up on the guys of potentially available to Cleveland at 14. When you look at 14 in this draft, who do you actually like in that range for the Cavs?
Honestly, it's going to be such a interesting draft day that guys that some people may have at 6 could actually fall to 14. And all it takes is one surprise to get into the lottery and somebody's going to fall. So I think there's like a wide range of guys. And if I assume the Cavs are going to look for some help on the wing and some outside shooting. And just depends on what their preference is. Like if they want somebody that's ready to come in and contribute right away, I can see Ochai Agbaji from Kansas being an option there. Maybe not like the sexiest pick because he's a senior, but he's fresh off a national championship. And at the very minimum, he should just be a 3-and-D wing that knocks down open shots and scores in transition. If you want a little bit more upside, you may go with the local guy, Malaki Branham from Ohio State. Kind of reminds me of Chris Middleton in a sense. Has like this old school game where everything is efficient, not a lot of dribbles. Doesn't really beat you with athleticism, but just knows how to get to a spot. The concern for him is the shot is a little flat, even though he shot like 41% from 3. It's just a matter of him being more willing to shoot threes. He was kind of reluctant to shoot deep. I think he could be an option. Ousmane Dieng, the 6'10 wing from, he's French, but he played in New Zealand last year. He may be available as someone that has a tremendous upside. He's 6'10, but he's a natural guard. He could be available. I think there's just quite a few guys, but I'm just thinking more so of wings that could come in and contribute right away because, in my opinion, even though they didn't make the playoffs, the Cavs are a playoff team. Just kind of had some bad luck at the end of the year.
Yeah. If you, let's say Kobe Altman calls you and is like, hey, this is like, who's your favorite guy in this range? Is it Agbaji? Is it Branham? Is it Dieng? Is it someone we haven't talked about, like a Johnny Davis type? Like, is there someone in this range that you're like, you know what, I really like this guy. He's higher on my board than some of these other guys. Is there anyone in that sense that really stands out to you?
Most people don't have him in the range, but I think when it's all said and done, he's going to be a top 15 player in this class. And it is Ryan Rollins from Toledo.
Ooh, love this.
Yeah, so that would be my choice there.
Rollins is a guy, we're going to talk about second round stuff later. I don't know if he's going to get there, right? Like we'll see if he ends up being a late first or whatever. Or if he rises or whatever. But like I think if the Cavs, like in theory, came away with, let's just say they go Agbaji at 14. Let's say they play it really safe. They say, okay, we just need a guy who can be a 3-and-D wing, even if the upside isn't in there in the same way. We believe this guy is going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. We clearly need that with Garland and Mobley and Allen as our main 3. And let's say they are at 39 or they trade back up in the late first to get a guy like Rollins. I view they're not obviously the same player. Their frames are different. They don't play exactly the same way. I kind of view him and Branham in sort of like a class together for Cleveland sense, because I think they need that kind of scoring guard off of Garland, maybe a little bit bigger than Garland. Again, Rollins isn't that same guy, but like I think if they could get like a little bit of both worlds in this draft to some degree, I think that's a really interesting outcome. I don't know if Rollins is on the list at 14. I love that you're like, that's my guy. I'm calling my shot on that one. I'm curious to see if he's a guy that they could also look at later on at 39 if they want to go that route. If they take someone like Agbaji, or if they take someone like, pick another wing that maybe could be available at that range.
Man, at that range, Jalen Williams, I think could be a really good option. I like him there. I've heard that he probably won't get past Atlanta, so that means he should be available for Cleveland. Good athlete, shot a good percentage from three, 39-inch vertical, 7'2" wingspan. He was the star of the combine, in my opinion. And what I really, really like about him was, I think he was considered a late first-round pick, maybe early second-round pick before going to the combine. And most guys that had that same floor, in a sense, chose not to play. And he opted to play, and he played well. He shot 12 of 16, I believe, in the 2 games, measured well. And he's put himself in position to be a possible late lottery pick somewhere in the mid-first round. He is, I heard somebody compare him, or call him like a right-handed Kevin Porter. I know Kevin Porter's not the, maybe not the coolest name to bring up, but I mean, nobody has ever denied his talent.
Yeah.
Right? And so, but Jalen Williams does have some ability to create his own shot, knock down threes, and he's a little bit bigger than Porter, if I'm not mistaken.
So let's end the segment on Agbaji, because I want to spend a little more time in the second segment on Dieng, because Evan and I have not talked about him on the show, and he would be such a fascinating swing for them with what I think they hope is their last pick this high in the draft for some time. Agbaji, as you've noted, and we've talked a lot here, theoretically a plug and play guy, 3-and-D guy, was really good in college as a senior, was the Final Four's most outstanding player at Kansas. Fits the physical profile of what the Cavs need on the wing. Is he someone for you that, considering his age, considering his maybe perceived lack of upside, right? Is that a good use of a lottery pick for what he's going to be? Because I think I would also just say, in thinking about this, I think plug and play rookies just don't always exist. Like, it's just very hard for guys to come in and actually contribute to winning. Maybe he can play a small role, but plug and play feels very high outcome, like in terms of everything kind of breaking it right for him. So, like, would Agbaji at 14, in your mind, be a reasonable use of that pick?
I think so. I mean, I think it just depends on your philosophy. On one hand, you can look at the Cavs and say, we have our cornerstones. We have 3 guys that we're going to build around, and our job is easy from here. Now we just need to find the complementary pieces, the guys that can knock down open shots and just make life easier. So if that's the case, then I could see Agbaji being somewhat of a safe pick. Or another philosophy is, we have our guys. We know we're going to be good. Let's just swing for the fences and not necessarily care about fit. But we have the luxury of being able to gamble on the most talented player, or the one that has the highest upside. So it just, kind of depends on your philosophy, because I don't imagine Cleveland being in the lottery again anytime soon. I guess, I'm sure that's the outcome people in Cleveland are hoping for.
Well, at the very least, like, they traded their first round pick next year. Now that, unless they don't make the playoffs again, then it'll become 2 seconds to Indiana in the Karis LeVert trade. So, like, at the very least, they're out of first round pick in 2023. So, like, at the very least, their next first round pick, barring a trade that would net them one the next year, it's in 2024. And, like, in theory, with Garland, with Mobley, with Allen, I think you're trying to hit the gas to some degree. Like, maybe not get to title contention, but, like, you're not trying to, if you're like a lottery team in 2 years, I feel like there's some question marks about what has gone on here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that would be something kind of drastic happen there. Something that, nobody wants to see happen. Yes. I mean, maybe even though he is 21, maybe Jalen Williams could be the middle ground between upside and plug and play. He played at Santa Clara, so it wasn't like he was at a big school. So I think it's weird, though. He's 21, and he doesn't come across as a guy that people say is near the finished product. Agbaji, I guess maybe because people have seen him so much playing at a blue blood school, most people consider him being very, very close to the finished product.
Yes. So, all right. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think maybe Jalen Williams could be somewhere in between.
All right. After the break, we're going to move on to Ousmane Dieng, the 6'10", small forward, power forward, who played in New Zealand, the French national. He's a really interesting guy who would be such a swing if he's there for Cleveland and they go that route. But first, going to tell everyone about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for your betting stats and sports info. Find all of the latest sports development, news, and odds, including the NHL Finals, the Major League Baseball season, and of course, the latest fighting news from MMA to UFC and boxing. There's also NBA draft odds, so they can be your continued source for your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. For instance, Dyson Daniels, someone I think the Cavs would have liked to slip, but doesn't seem like that's going to happen, is a minus 130 favorite to be picked above 7.5, after 7.5, minus 110 to pick before 7.5. Johnny Davis is minus 130 to be picked after 11.5, minus 110 to be under 11.5. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. That's BetOnline. That's where the game starts. All right, back on Locked On Cavs with Rafael Barlowe from the NBA Big Board Show and his great newsletter over on Substack. Let's talk about Dieng. So give us the 101 on what he is and why he's a lottery pick in this class.
All right, well, I'll give a little background. So the average person who probably hasn't really kept up with the draft may look at his numbers and be like, these are horrible because, they just don't look good on paper. And so I want to add like a little bit of context to his numbers, because if you look at the stats, 39% from the floor, 27% from three, 8.9 points per game, 3 rebounds. Nothing that's going to stand out or make you realize or make you think like this guy is worth a lottery pick. So talking about a kid that's like 18 years old from France, went to Australia to play, and it was a big change. So think about like, your 18-year-old American that may go away to college and kind of struggle a little bit with adjusting to, just a different environment. Well, for Dieng, it was a totally different country, totally different continent. And Australia had these really strict COVID restrictions. So he wasn't able to bring family or anybody with him. So he was kind of out there by himself in a sense. And I think that played a major role in his struggles at the beginning of the season. At one point, he was averaging like 4 points per game, 20% from the floor, 17% from three. The numbers were bad. But in the second half of the year, I think once he got a little bit more comfortable and kind of adjusted to playing against grown men, he kind of looked like the player that people anticipated him being coming into the season. And that's a 6'10" wing. He has the height of a big, but he's a natural guard, natural wing, can handle, can pass, can play out of pick and rolls. I've seen like best case scenario, a Paul George type player, a two-way player that can score on 3 levels. I mean, that's best case scenario, which, Paul George is a very good player.
Yeah, incredible player. Player.
He gets I think he gets his criticism is a little bit unfair, but that's Dieng's best case scenario. And I think like his fit with Cleveland would be pretty interesting because he is like your big wing ball handler that can make Garland play off the ball, secondary playmaker. And I think if he maximizes his potential, that would be an excellent fit there.
So would the key for that, I think, if you're Cleveland, be, okay, we're kind of using this pick as a talent upside pick. We're not going to draft a guy that's probably, like, I can't imagine he's going to come in and be expected to play actual minutes in year one. That's just not seemingly going to be in the cards for maybe like the Thunder would be a place he could play, but Cleveland seems a little dicey for him to play. Would this be a play in your mind of like, okay, we'll find some wing options in free agency, like on the cheap 1-year vet min guys, maybe a guy in the MLE, patch that hole up, and then Dieng, we'll put him in, get him on the bench. We'll have him around our guys. We'll maybe have him go to the G League at times. Is that like a way you could kind of massage this and say, okay, we're going to go, like, we understand we're maybe not drafting the guy that can help us right now, but the talent level is so much higher on this guy than like an Agbaji or Branham or some of these other guys.
Yeah, I can see that. And I could also see a team drafting him at 7 or 8. That wouldn't shock me either. One of the teams I've heard is interested in him is the Pelicans, but their situation is very similar to the Cavs. It's like basically a playoff team, which they are a playoff team. They're not going to offer a lot of developmental minutes because they're in win now mode. But if he goes to Cleveland, I could see him, cracking the rotation. Definitely not the starting 5, but I could see him being like the 7th or 8th man in the rotation.
Okay, so let's look at some of the other options at 14. Is there anyone like Branham, Maybe a Sochan if he slips that far, an Eason. We talked about Jalen Williams. Is there anyone else in that range that kind of stands out to you, someone of interest to you? Like, I mean, maybe he slips because of the injury stuff, a la Michael Porter, but like AJ Griffin is like, if does he slide outside the top 10 for whatever reason and is in play here? Like, is there anyone else in this range that you feel like we should be discussing as an option at 14?
Blake Wesley. I think Blake Wesley could be a bigger version of Tyrese Maxey. Can play a little bit of one, a little bit of two. And I was around him a little bit this summer in Las Vegas watching him work out, and I was impressed. He's put on a little bit of weight. He started off his college career, I think he was like 175, and he's like 189 now. So he's gotten stronger, which his lack of weight played a big part in his struggles finishing at the rim, which I think like once he gets stronger, he'll be a much better finisher. So he's someone that I would definitely target if I'm Cleveland.
Yeah, he interests me because I think like he like Branham fits that profile of a physically gifted guard who's a little bit bigger than Garland, a little bit bigger than Sexton, who also obviously there's a big RFA thing coming up with him. Maybe again, not a guy you're hoping is going to play from day one, but like if you get the best version of him, he would seemingly make a ton of sense on the team. You could see him playing with Garland. You could see him taking like LeVert's minutes in a year, right? Like, and I think one of the beauties of this pick, Rafael, is I think the Cavs are like, I don't know what's going to happen with Sexton, really. Like, I think it's 50-50 or so he's back at this point. It seems like it's not clear that he's coming back. Extending LeVert this summer seems unlikely, but we'll see how that goes in a contract year. I think they are in a position where if they do want to try to kind of walk this tightrope and say, let's get a guy that we really like, but is also a developmental piece a little bit, right? Like maybe a guy that plays spot minutes and plays G League, but we're not expecting to contribute from day one. I kind of think that's a very reasonable thing for them to do, considering where they're at, considering Evan Mobley, as good as he is in year 2. Darius Garland is just now eligible for his rookie scale extension. Jared Allen, despite being on his second contract, is still young. Like this is a team
super young.
He's really young. And it's just like I think they can't afford, if they want to try to be cute's maybe the wrong word, but if they want to play that developmental card here in a way that they might not be, they feel like they can be able to in 2 years. I get that. And like Wesley, less so than Dieng, I think also would kind of fit that profile. I think Branham, it kind of fits that to me a little bit too, because I don't know if he's coming in from day one and is like ready to supplant like a LeVert in a playoff rotation for a coach and JB Bickerstaff, who sometimes can want to lean on the vets he trusts a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's all going to just boil down to philosophy. Like I mentioned earlier, do you go with someone that you can plug and play? And I think like the biggest need for Cleveland, and correct me if I'm wrong, is outside shooting. Someone that can come in and knock down open shots. And so at that range, whether it's Dieng, whether it's Wesley, I don't think those guys are going to be able to come in and just immediately space the floor at a high rate. Maybe Branham, but we're talking about a guy that only took 2 threes per game at Ohio State. But I do think they can find that there's a particular player that I have in mind in the second round that should be available that I think could actually crack the rotation.
Ooh, I love this. I love this as a tease. So we're going to come back for that after the break. We're going to transition to the second round guys. And I'm going to ask Rafael also to end the show about my favorite pet player in this draft too. I'm going to see what he thinks through time. I'm not going to tell him. All right, we're going to tell everyone about our friends at Built Bar. You know how our friends at Built Bar always coming out with new amazing flavors? Well, they've outdone themselves this time with the mud pie flavor. And for the first time ever, they're introducing both mud pie puffs and mud pie bars. Not sure what the mud pie tastes like? Well, if you're a chocolate fan, you better sit down for this. The new mud pie bar is rich whipped cream and chocolate mousse, smothered in 100% real chocolate and topped with cookies and cream crumble. You have to try mud pie as soon as possible and hurry because these are only available for a limited time. Visit Built.com to taste the deliciousness for yourself. Built products are low calorie, high protein, and low sugar. Mud pie is packed with 16 grams of protein and only 150 calories and 8 grams of sugar. It's like your mom baked the most delicious creamy chocolate mud pie and wrapped it just for you. Built bars are also made with collagen protein, which is great for your body because it absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. The promo code is LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Try those mud pie bars and mud pie puffs today. All right, last segment with Rafael Barlowe. Rafael, give me the guy you were teasing. Who's the guy that could crack the rotation for Cleveland?
His name is Gabriel Procida from Italy.
Okay.
Very, very good athlete. And I think he's the best athlete in the international class. And he's a good athlete at the wing. And he is a lights out shooter. I'm confident that he is going to be one of these guys that outperforms his draft position. And I think that he should be available at 30, 39. Is that where the pick is at?
Yeah, they got 39 at the top of the second round, and then they have 56, the third to last pick in the draft. Obviously, 2 picks in this draft forfeited due to tampering violations by the Bucks and the Heat, respectively.
Isn't that such a light penalty for tampering?
Pat Riley is like slapping his rings down on the table. Giannis is like, I won a title despite the tampering. I wanted to get Bogdanovich and get rid of DiVincenzo not going through. Like, they're just, those teams don't care. They don't care.
Yeah, I think it even kind of opens the door more for another team to say, if that's we lose.
Also, tampering is still happening. It's happening.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, it happens. It's part of it's talking with other teams ahead of time, and your agent doing your job is technically tampering, but alas.
Yeah, I'm sure it happened at the combine. You had everybody in the same place at the same time.
Yeah, what are they supposed to talk about? You know, like what are agents and like a Kobe Allman talks to an agent of a guy is he not going to ask about that guy? Like, he's not doing his job if he's not like sussing that information out.
But yeah, I like Procida. Shot 38% from 3. Very, very confident. He's young. I think he's only like 19 years old or just turned 20 at the beginning of this month. I think he's a guy that should be able to come in and contribute right away because he has a defined skill set. And of course, I mean, he's going to need some development, but he has played professionally for the last 2 years, maybe 2.5 years. I think he played a little half and half with the juniors and the senior team. But again, he has a defined skill set. And that's one of the things I look for and guys that are going to be second round picks. What's the skill set that you bring to the table that's going to help you get on the floor? And he has that. And with his athleticism, if he can add a little bit of game off the dribble, some creativity, then I think you could really end up with a good player there.
Yeah, I mean, like shooting would be such a plus for the Cavs. They need spacing. They tried to go like the shooter route with Dylan Windler a couple of years ago, and it just hasn't worked out. And a second round pick on this to me would make a ton of sense. What about some of these other second round wings? You know, it seems like Wendell Moore might hop into the first round, but you have guys like Caleb Houston from Michigan. Bryce McGowan's from Nebraska, Kendall Brown from Baylor that might be in the second round. Is there any of these guys in the second round in that 39 range you're particularly interested in?
I don't necessarily like the fit for Cleveland. Maybe Wendell Moore because he I guess you can say he's kind of plug and play. And
he feels JB Bickerstaffy to me in that like very solid. Not maybe the most like overwhelmingly athletic guy on the defensive end, but he's going to like defend his position well. He's going to be in the right spot, and he's going to like just kind of do the very simple stuff on offense. Feels very Bickerstaff-y to me if they were going to go that route if he's there at 39.
Yeah, and he's a 20-year-old athlete with 3 years of college experience. There are guys that I don't want to like go through the names, but there are guys that just finished their freshman year that are only just a few months younger than him. And so you're getting upside, which I think is weird because people don't really talk about him as an upside guy because they've seen him play for 3 years. But I think you get a combination of upside and shooting and experience. So if he is available, I think that pick makes sense there. As far as McGowan's, I think he's more of a scorer than shooter. And I don't know how he can help unless he really develops as a shooter. Kendall Brown, I'm not really high on Kendall Brown, to be honest with you. I was at one point, I had him as like number 5 on my big board. And now he's fallen out of the first round. So if he falls to Cleveland at that pick, then I mean you can get like potentially high value for that. But he was a very reluctant shooter. I mean, just a phenomenal athlete. Don't get me wrong. Arguably the best athlete in this class, maybe outside of Jaden Ivey. I just don't know like the skill set that he really brings to the table right now. Of course, he's young, so there's plenty of room for him to grow. But right now, I just don't know the skill set that he brings. He's a good passer, but I think in order to be like a really effective passer, you have to be somewhat of a threat on offense to unlock your passing ability. So. And I guess like when I'm thinking for Cleveland, I'm thinking more so we got our guys. I just need to find some shooting behind them, and that's just not something that Kendall Brown would provide.
Yeah, I think the second round could be interesting in terms of like if they want to just like look. Unfortunately, the second round hit rate isn't always the highest. It can be very hit or miss. I'll be curious. I also just don't think this is a team that like they have the 3 second round picks, or excuse me, 3 picks overall, 2 in the second round. I would be surprised if they roll into camp with 3 rookies on the roster. Now, look, maybe they go 14, they take a pick, they use the pick, they take someone at 39, and then the second round, the second pick is draft and stash. Maybe they trade back up into the first round. They did that to get Kevin Porter Jr. a couple of years ago when they really wanted him, and they spent money to get that pick as well. Maybe they do something like that to go get someone like. There's been a lot of Jalen Taylor links from Stanford. Like maybe like he is, I don't know where he's ultimately going to go, but like there's been some links with him where like it feels like they're a fan of Terry's, and we'll see where that goes.
I got a funny story for that.
Hit me.
So I'm at the combine, and I was at his pro day. So I'm sitting there on the front row on the baseline, and the Cavs staff was sitting on the sideline. And if there was one player that I saw because I was trying to like gauge and see like, all right, who do teams like, right? Sometimes like if a guy was performing his pro day, guys are on their phone, they're chit-chatting, whatever. One of the things I noticed when Terry was on the floor, that the front office for the Cavaliers, their eyes were focused on him. I mean, maybe I'm just overthinking it, but that's one of the things that I picked out. And it was the only one where I could say like, dang, they must really like him. And I mean, maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe it was just following the eyes.
There's a little buzz with him at 14, which I think feels a little high. But
yeah,
like,
I think that's too high.
You could. The thing with 14 ultimately is I think you could talk me into a bunch of different stuff. And like, we'll come after that. We'll do a pod, we're going to be live on YouTube a little bit after the pick. Like you guys are going to bring it down. We'll, if we think it's a reach or whatever, we'll kill it. But like, this feels like in the range where like you could tell a story about it, let's say, and say it makes sense. Even if it's like a little bit of a reach, a little high, you could explain it to me if they were like, we're just going to do this. And maybe the draft breaks weird in front of them and they're in a weird spot. Like it's the thing about this draft is that like it feels like we know who the kind of the top guys are. There's the Shaedon Sharpe factor. We'll see where Dyson Daniels goes and stuff. But like there's just a lot of like you could convince me a bunch of different things are going to happen with guys, and we'll see where they land.
Yeah, definitely. I spoke to a scout yesterday about Terry, and he wasn't high on him. And there were some other guys. Like there was a scout I sat next to at the combine, and he was saying like, this kid needs to go back to school. He's like, I don't believe in the shooting. The shooting numbers are better than what he really shoots. He kind of got hot at the second half of the year. He's like, it just makes sense for him to go to school. He'll be the man at Arizona. He'll be a lottery pick the next year. He'll go get some NIL money, best case scenario. And I kind of agreed with that sentiment at the time. But then all of a sudden, I just start seeing his name rising and rising and rising. So I was asking a scout, like, did I miss something? And he's just like, there's just not many guys at 6'7" that can handle the ball, can defend multiple positions, and that can possibly be a point guard. And he said that's the reason why Dyson Daniels and Terry are shooting up draft boards, is because teams want 6'6", 6'7", 6'8" guys that can handle the ball, maybe be secondary playmakers, because they just can be this connective tissue that makes everyone around them better. So I think 14 is still high, but based off of hearing that from a scout, it kind of makes sense why his value is I mean, I guess his potential is outweighing his production at this point.
Yeah. I did say before he went, you're correct. He went to Arizona. I accidentally said Stanford before. Dalen Terry from Arizona, not Stanford. All right, let's end on this one guy I just want to ask you about. He's become my obsession. I have a friend in the league who put me onto this guy because he's of his frame, because of the kind of player that we've seen succeed. That's David Roddy from Colorado State. Give me the Rafael Barlowe scouting report on David Roddy.
Roddy's going to be interesting.
Just to be clear, I am obsessed. I don't know if he's going to be good. I don't know if he's going to be bad, but he is so big and so weird as a player that I'm just like, I just want to see it. I want to see what this looks like, that this dude who looks like a left tackle almost is like playing small forward in the NBA.
When you mentioned frame, And I thought, okay, there's two guys he could be talking about, which Chet is going to be gone. Either Roddy or John Butler from Florida State. They're on two totally opposite sides of the spectrum.
Very, completely different spectrums here.
Yeah, John Butler's like 174 pounds. He's like 7 foot. But Roddy had a rough combine. I will say that. He did have a rough combine, which I thought could hurt him. But I've heard that he's actually done well in his workouts. His pro day was pretty good. Very interesting. I made a comment to some friends. I said I would not be surprised, which I was proven wrong, if he gets drafted in April at the NFL draft before the NBA draft. And I know, just because I have some friends that played in the league that kind of had, that body body type that NFL teams are looking to kind of transition into a tight end or a defensive end. And I was like, I know NFL teams are monitoring his draft slot, because with that frame, that footwork, the athleticism, I know somebody's like, man, if you don't get these 3 fingers in the dirt and rush this passer, and go ahead and make some money. But one of the things I like about him is that he made like crazy strides as a shooter last year. And I mean, his shot looked money every time I saw him shoot. That's why I was so shocked that he struggled at the combine. He's a guy that could be like this really unique weapon. Maybe a creative coach is like, I'm going to turn you into a small ball 5. I'm going to just create all types of crazy mismatches where teams that switch, we're going to put we're going to put you in the post. I mean, I just think there's so many different ways that you can use him as a weapon. And if he works out, somebody's going to look really, really smart. But at the very minimum, he does have the outside shooting that should allow him to see minutes in the NBA. So that's a pretty cool player there that you have as your, you got a little man crush showing in a sense.
Look, 6'5", 6'11" and a half wingspan, listed at 261. That's not a basketball player. That's like bigger. It's like I when you said tight end, it made me think Antonio Gates. Obviously, that's the most famous basketball at Kent State in Ohio. Yeah, Tony Gonzalez. So Antonio Gates, 6'4", 255 is what he's listed at. Roddy is like significantly bigger than that in terms of his weight, or 6 pounds. It's not even like he's an inch taller, got like 6 pounds on him. He doesn't like look like he moves like that either. And I've just looked at guys that have succeeded in the playoffs. Like I think Grant Williams obviously didn't maybe play as well in the finals and everything, but we're seeing guys that are really strong and be able to hold up matter. And I just if Roddy's if the athleticism is real enough where he's going to be able to move his feet on the perimeter and stuff, and the shooting holds up, that guy feels like he's going to be useful. And I also just want to see it. It's I don't know what the right situation is for him. Cleveland would just be weird because him and Mobley on the court together would be these two opposite body types in a lot of ways. Mobley's this tall 7-footer who's long and kind of lanky, and Roddy's this little jack thick king. But I just want to see it. I don't know where the right fit is for him. I hope it's somewhere that he maybe gets to play right away. He's been linked to Denver a little bit. That could be fun. I really like David Roddy. So you being at least a little curious about David Roddy makes me feel better about the amount of time I spent thinking about David Roddy.
Oh yeah, I like him, especially with the shooting. I think as long as you can shoot the ball at a high rate, you should be able to find some time. And then again, with the way he moves his feet, but I don't even know if I would say his footwork is the most impressive thing. His fluidity, just the way he moves his hips, makes me believe that he should be able to, be able to defend in space. But 6'11" wingspan, there's some quarterback out there that's I just can just throw it up to him.
Yeah, some NFL general manager is just extremely mad that he's good enough to be in the NBA and can make professional athlete money without risking CTE to the degree that you do in the NFL as a tight end. He was was he a track runner in high school or something too, if I'm not mistaken?
I know he's I want to say I know he played football. Either way, with that body style, you got to be a professional athlete, because I know you can't buy clothes off the rack. You can't buy a long sleeve T-shirt or a sweater when you're 6'11" wingspan and you're 6'5".
Now I need to know who's doing I don't think he's going to the green room, but did David Roddy get a suit for draft night? And if so, who custom is designing this for him.
Yeah, definitely not off the rack.
Like what was the equipment manager of Colorado State having to do to get him like compression that fit him properly? Like I have so many questions. Oh my god, this is incredible. This is incredible. All right, Rafael, thank you so much for coming through. Give everyone the plug about where they can find you and what we got going on. The biggest night of your year is this Thursday. You're my favorite draft voice. Tell everyone where they can hear you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. You can find me at Barlowe 500 on Twitter, and then the NBA Big Board newsletter is exclusive content. I took over for Chad Ford when he retired in April, and Chad was known for his contacts and as a reporter, and so he shared some of his contacts with me, and then I used some of my own. So not only just using my own opinions, but I'm also gathering intel from different NBA league personnel. So you can find that there on Substack is NBA Big Board. And yeah, I mean, that's it. Oh yeah, the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast. I'm doing 5 days a week, which it's a whole lot right now.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot. And yeah, I mean, I'm ready for this draft class to kind of move on. Looking forward to 2023 because I feel like I've been talking about the same guys for almost a year now. So but I'm looking forward to draft night. It's going to be fun. It's really like my favorite day of the year. Don't tell my wife that. but yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Check out everything they're doing over there. Again, I'll be live on the Locked On Cavs YouTube, I think with Evan, 15 minutes or so after the Cavs pick at 14. We'll see what goes on there with that pick. Check out the whole live stream. The whole network is going to be doing. It's going to be a jam-packed day for the Locked On Network covering the NBA draft. So everyone tune in. Thanks. We'll be back tomorrow. Danny Cunningham will be joining Evan and I. Danny, of course, is from ESPN 850 in Cleveland and WKYC. We're going to talk NBA draft with him, talk Cavs big picture stuff. It's going to be a good time. Till then, stay tuned. Be well.